Please, don't take my dad.
What?
What happens when a billionaire sets a cruel trap to expose greed, but a 7-year-old janitor's son answers it with a kindness so pure it stops a powerful heart, cold, and forces a man who owns everything to confront the one thing he lost long ago, his humanity. Now, before the story begins, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel, Kindness True Stories, because your support helps these real-feel stories of compassion reach more hearts. And now let's begin. William Harrison Montgomery had built his empire on steel nerves and sharper instincts, and at 74, he trusted neither memory nor mercy, especially not after the betrayals that had hollowed him out like termites in old wood. The lawyers came and went, the nurses rotated weekly, and the staff changed so often that names blurred into uniforms, and footsteps at night became accusations he had been robbed before, not of money, but of truth, assistants who smiled and lied, partners who swore loyalty and siphoned millions away, even family who visited only when rumors of wills circulated. So William devised a test, a simple one he thought: an open envelope placed on the mahogany bedside table, thick with $5,000 in crisp bills, a lamp left on a curtain drawn just enough to show the city lights, and William lying perfectly still, his breathing shallow, practiced like a soldier playing dead on a battlefield. He would pretend to sleep and wait, because temptation reveals character, and he wanted proof of who was clean and who was rotten. Tonight the test was meant for whoever entered his bedroom uninvited or lingered too long. The trap was quiet, patient, and merciless. Downstairs, the night janitor Mateo Alvarez pushed his cart along the marble floors, his shoes too thin for the cold, his shoulders tight with worry because he had no one to watch his son tonight. The sitter cancelled and the neighbor's lights were off, and he could not afford to lose this job, not this one, not when rent was due and school shoes were worn through. So he did what desperate parents do. He prayed and brought his 7-year-old son Lucas with him, keeping him close, whispering, "Rules: don't touch anything, don't speak unless spoken to, stay behind me." Lucas nodded, his eyes wide, taking in the mansion like a museum of silence. He wore a jacket 2 sizes too small, the zipper broken, the sleeves frayed and clutched under his arm a small toy, a plastic knight missing a sword, the only thing he had left from his mother, who had died 2 winters ago. Mateo cleaned quietly, wiping fingerprints that never seemed to belong to the same people twice, until a call light blinked upstairs, the billionaire's wing. Mateo's stomach dropped because staff were told never to enter without permission. But the radio crackled with a curt request from security: "Check the room, Mr. Montgomery thinks he heard something." Mateo swallowed, took Lucas's hand, and climbed the stairs, each step heavier than the last. When they reached the bedroom door, it was ajar, light spilling onto the carpet. Mateo knocked softly. "No." Answer. He peeked inside and saw the old man in bed, eyes closed, chest barely moving. The envelope sat there, bold and open, money visible like a dare. Mateo felt heat rush to his face and panic in his chest. He stepped back, pulling Lucas with him, whispering, "We shouldn't be here." But Lucas had already seen it. Not the money first, but the old man's hands, thin, veined, trembling with cold. The window was cracked, and the night air cut through the room. Lucas tugged his father's sleeve. "Papa, he's cold." Mateo shook his head. "We can't touch him. We'll get in trouble." But Lucas slipped free, walked to the bed, and without a sound took off his jacket and gently laid it across the billionaire's hands, tucking it like his mother used to tuck him. Then he noticed the envelope, the money shining, and his small fingers froze. He glanced at his father, fear and confusion mixing with something else, resolve. Lucas stood guard by the table as if the bills were fragile birds. He whispered to the sleeping man, "Don't worry, sir, I'll watch it for you." Mateo's heart hammered. He rushed forward to pull Lucas back, but the boy planted his feet. "Papa, don't let anyone take it. It's not ours." The stillness stretched. William felt the warmth on his hands, the weight of the jacket, the whisper like a confession. He kept his eyes shut, his mind racing. This was not the script, not the outcome he expected. The test was supposed to expose, a thief not expose. Him the door creaked again, security footsteps approached, and William made a decision. Cruel and sudden, he let out a sharp breath, groaned, and spoke without opening. His eyes, "Who's there, Matteo?" Nearly collapsed. "Sir, I'm sorry, my son." "I had no choice." William's voice hardened. "Bring the boy." Closer, Matteo obeyed. Lucas stepped forward. Clutching his toy knife, William opened. His eyes finally sharp blue, cutting through the dim light, and fixed on the child. "Did you touch my money?" Lucas shook his head. "No. Sir, I was protecting it." William's lips thinned while Lucas swallowed. "Because it belongs to you, and because stealing makes Dad sad." The security guard shifted. Uncomfortable, William pointed to the envelope. "What if I say it's missing? What if I say your father took it?" Matteo went pale. "Sir, please, I'll do anything." Lucas's eyes filled, but he straightened and held out the broken knife. "You can take this, sir. It was my mum's. She's gone, but you can have it if you don't take my dad away." William felt something crack, a memory of his own son long estranged. The weight of a toy, once loved, the warmth of a jacket given freely. The trap lay shattered at his feet, but the cost of the test had just revealed itself, and as William stared at the child offering his only treasure to save his father, the billionaire realized this night would not end the way he planned, and neither would his life. William Harrison Montgomery stared at the broken toy resting in the boy's open palm. The plastic was worn smooth at the edges, the paint chipped from years of small hands gripping it during nights when monsters felt real and comfort was rare. And in that moment, the billionaire felt something he had not allowed himself to feel in decades: shame. Thick and suffocating, he waved the security guard away with a stiff motion, and the man hesitated, then obeyed, closing the door softly behind him, leaving the room suspended in a fragile, quiet. Matteo stood frozen, unsure whether to kneel, beg, or flee, while Lucas kept his arm extended, unwavering, as if courage itself had taken root in his small chest. William cleared his throat, his voice rough. "Why would you give me that, Lucas, sir? Because you look lonely, and lonely people need something to hold." Matteo's breath hitched. William turned his gaze to the window, then back to the child. "Your father broke my rules, bringing you here." Lucas nodded. "Yes, sir, but he didn't have a choice. He always does the right thing, even when it hurts." William closed his eyes. Memories flooded back, boardrooms filled with men who smiled while planning betrayal, a son who stopped answering calls after one too many broken promises, a wife who died believing he loved money more than people. The envelope of cash suddenly looked obscene, like a test designed by a man afraid of being seen. William pushed himself upright. The jacket slid from his hands and he picked it up carefully. "This is yours," he said. Lucas shook his head. "It's cold. Tonight you can keep it until morning." "I'll be okay." William's fingers tightened around the fabric, the warmth seeping into him like a confession he didn't deserve. Matteo finally found his voice. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I never meant to disrespect you." William held up a hand. "Stop. You cleaned this house for 2 years, without complaint, without theft, without a single mark against your name, and I repaid that with a trap." Matteo looked down. "I understand. So people like us are always tested." William flinched at the words "people like us" because they were true. He gestured to a chair. "Sit, both of you." Lucas hopped up, immediately swinging his legs, while Matteo sat rigid on the edge, ready to spring if ordered. William reached for the envelope, closed it, and slid it into the drawer, then surprised himself by pushing the drawer shut with finality. "Tell me about your mother," he asked. Lucas's face softened. "She sang when the lights went out, even when she was tired. She said songs scare fear away." William swallowed and nodded. "My wife used to hum while counting bills," he said quietly. "We never sang together." Lucas tilted his head. "You still..." And so William let out a sound that might have been a laugh, might have been a sob, and in that instant something shifted. The power dynamic cracked open, revealing a room where money no longer dictated worth. The old man leaned forward. "Why did you guard the money?" Lucas answered simply because it wasn't mine. Mateo felt tears sting his eyes. He had taught that lesson with words and worn examples, but he had never imagined it would be tested like this. William stood, suddenly the motion sharp and decisive, and for a terrifying second Mateo thought this was the end. But William walked to the phone and made a call. Cancel the test. He said no more envelopes, no more games. The line went dead. He turned back to them. I owe you both an apology and a debt. Mateo shook his head. So we don't want trouble. William nodded. You won't get it. You'll get something else tomorrow. You'll come here after school. Lucas's eyes widened. Am I in trouble? William smiled faintly. No, you're invited. Lucas grinned, then hesitated. Can I bring my knight? William's gaze dropped to the toy still in his hand. He set it gently on the table and pushed it back to the boy. You should keep what matters. Lucas picked it up and tucked it into his pocket, then leaned forward and did something that stunned them both. He hugged William quick and fierce, then stepped back like nothing unusual had happened. Mateo gasped. I'm so sorry. William felt his chest tighten around the place where no one had touched him in years. It's all right, he said hoarsely. It's more than all right. As they stood to leave, William called after them. Mateo, tomorrow morning go to HR. They'll tell you your shift has changed and your pay has increased. Mateo froze. Sir, I didn't ask for William. Cut him off. You didn't ask for anything tonight either. That's why you're getting it. Lucas waved. Good night, Sir. William waved back. The door closed and the mansion felt different, not empty, but echoing with something. Fragile hope. William sat on the edge of the bed, holding the jacket, breathing in the scent of detergent and childhood, and thought of the test he had designed to catch thieves, only to be caught himself by a child who owned almost nothing yet gave everything. And somewhere deep inside, the billionaire understood this was only the beginning, because when a fortress of suspicion collapses, it reveals not safety, but responsibility. And tomorrow, he would have to decide what kind of man he would be now that a 7-year-old had shown him how to be human. Morning arrived differently for William. Harrison Montgomery, the sun, felt intrusive rather than welcome, and the mansion no longer hummed with the sterile quiet he preferred. It echoed with the memory of a small voice, saying lonely people need something to hold. He rose before dawn, skipped the nurse's check, and stood by the window gripping the too small jacket still folded in his hands. He had not slept, but for the first time in years, he had not hidden behind pills or screens either. When the staff arrived, whispers traveled fast about the cancelled tests, the sealed drawers, the sudden summons to HR. Mateo Alvarez arrived with Lucas just after school as instructed, both nervous, both unsure if this was another hidden examination. Mateo's pay raise had already posted in the system, and the new schedule meant evenings free, something Mateo hadn't dared to imagine. But relief was braided with fear, because generosity from men like William often came with strings. The study was warmer than the bedroom. Books lined the walls, trophies of a life measured in wins and losses. William greeted them standing, not seated, which startled Mateo. Lucas walked straight to the desk and placed the toy knight upright like a sentry guarding the room. I brought him. Sir William nodded solemnly. Thank you. I needed him. Lucas smiled. Mateo cleared his throat. Sir, if this is about last night, William interrupted. No, it's about tonight and tomorrow and after. I've spent a lifetime testing people, and I'm tired of failing my own exams. Mateo didn't know what to say. Lucas asked, are we having a test? William considered, then shook his head. No, we're having dinner. Mateo's eyes widened. Sir, that's not appropriate. William waved it away. I eat alone every night. That's what's inappropriate. They ate at a smaller table, not the long ceremonial one. Staff watched from a distance, astonished, as Lucas asked questions without fear. Why are there so many rooms? Do you have a dog? Why do you look sad when you smile? William answered, honestly, because I didn't know when to stop building, because I lost my dog years ago, and because smiling became a habit, not a feeling. Lucas nodded like these were problems that could be solved after dinner. William asked Matteo about his life, the long hours, the buses, the nights when Lucas slept on folded coats. Matteo spoke, plainly without bitterness, and William listened, realizing how little he had listened to anyone without calculating value in return. Lucas grew tired, his head drooping. William stood. "I'll have a room prepared." Matteo panicked. "Sir, we can go home." William softened. "Not tonight, the storm's back." Lucas tugged his father's sleeve. "Papa, it's okay." The guest room was simple, warm. Lucas curled under the blankets, clutching his knight. William lingered at the door and for a moment looked like a man afraid to leave a child alone in the dark. He surprised himself by humming low, tuneless but sincere. Lucas smiled in his sleep. Matteo watched from the hall, his throat tight. William turned to him. "Come walk with me." They moved through corridors lined with portraits. William stopped before one, a younger man with a boy on his shoulders. "My son Henry," he said quietly. "We haven't spoken in 9 years." Matteo waited. William continued. "I taught him to be strong, but I never taught him to be kind. He learned that somewhere else, and when he chose it over me, I called it betrayal." Matteo met his gaze. "Sometimes children teach us after it's too late." William nodded. "That's what frightens me." He led Matteo to a door at the end of the wing. Inside was a smaller office, papers neatly stacked. "This will be yours, sir." "I don't understand. I'm starting a foundation, scholarships, housing, legal aid. I need someone honest to keep it clean." Matteo shook his head. "I'm a janitor." William smiled. "You're a guardian." "That's rarer." Matteo's voice trembled. "I don't want charity." William replied. "Then don't take it, earn it tomorrow." William called Henry. He hadn't planned to, but Lucas's jacket lay across his desk like a dare. The call rang too long, then connected. "Why now?" Henry asked. William said, "Because a boy taught me something, and I'm afraid I might miss my chance again." Silence. Stretched, Henry exhaled. "I don't trust you." William accepted. Then don't trust me. Trust the work. Come, see it come, meet the people." Henry agreed to visit. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but a door cracked open. The next week unfolded like a quiet miracle. Matteo learned spreadsheets. At night, Lucas did homework. At the long table, humming songs his mother used to sing, and William found himself sitting nearby, listening as if sound itself could stitch him back together. Word spread among staff. Tests were over. Generosity replaced suspicion, and with it a new tension, because kindness demanded consistency. One afternoon, William overheard Lucas telling a gardener, "Don't worry, sir, it's not yours to carry alone." William closed his eyes because the boy was changing the house, changing him. Yet shadows lingered. A board member questioned the foundation expenses. A lawyer warned of liability, and an anonymous letter arrived accusing William of manipulation, of exploiting a child's story for image. William folded the letter carefully, feeling the old instinct to retreat behind walls. But Lucas climbed onto the chair beside him and asked, "What's wrong?" William told the truth. "People think I'm pretending," Lucas thought, then said, "If you keep being real, they'll get tired of being wrong." William laughed, a sound that filled the room like light. But the test wasn't over, not really, because true tests come unannounced. And as winter deepened and the foundation prepared its first public announcement, a crisis brewed that would force William to choose between protecting his name and protecting the family that had found him, and the choice would demand more than money. It would demand the courage to stand exposed, guided by the moral compass of a 7-year-old who once guarded $5,000 like it was sacred. The crisis broke on a grey morning when cameras crowded the gates and headlines accused Harrison Montgomery of staging a publicity redemption using a poor janitor and his child. The board demanded distance. Lawyers urged silence, and every old instinct screamed to protect the fortress retreat. Deny, cut ties quietly. Matteo arrived, shaken. Lucas, confused, clutching his knight as reporters shouted questions that tasted like blame. William felt the familiar pull of power. The easy move would be to send them away. issue a statement and let money smooth the rest, but he remembered a boy standing guard over an envelope and knew the cost of that choice. He called a press conference, not in the grand hall, but in the modest study where the jacket still hung over a chair. He stood without notes and told the truth. He spoke of the test, the fear, the shame, and how a child had failed his trap by passing a greater one. He introduced Mateo as his partner, not his prop, and Lucas as his teacher, not his shield. When asked about image, he said, if kindness improves my image, then the image was wrong to begin with. And when a reporter pressed, Lucas stepped forward, unafraid, and said, my dad didn't steal, and Mr. Montgomery isn't lonely anymore because he lets people help him. The room fell quiet. Like snow settling, William ended by announcing the foundation's charter, naming Mateo as director and inviting independent audits. He welcomed scrutiny because transparency was the only repayment worthy of trust. Backlash didn't vanish overnight. Contracts were questioned, donors hesitated, but something sturdier formed. Volunteers arrived, families applied, staff worked late with purpose. Henry visited, walked the halls, watched Lucas hum while doing homework, and saw his father listening. Instead of commanding, they talked slowly, painfully, honestly. Forgiveness didn't arrive like thunder, it arrived like dawn. Mateo worried about overreach. William worried about health. Lucas worried about whether the night needed a cape. Winter deepened and the foundation opened its first housing unit with no fanfare. William handed keys to families and stood back. Lucas tugged his sleeve. Sir, can we go home now? Meaning the mansion had become a home, and William smiled, said yes. Months later, William updated his will, not to reward blood, but to fund care, education, and dignity. He kept the jacket folded in his desk and the broken knight on the shelf, a reminder that wealth was loud, but virtue whispered and demanded attention on a quiet evening. As snow fell, Lucas asked if the first night was really a test. William answered, yes, but I was the one being tested. Lucas nodded, satisfied, and said, you did okay. William laughed and hugged him, knowing okay was the highest praise he could earn. And before this story ends, take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel, Kindness True Stories, because every click helps spread these stories of compassion and reminds the world that even the smallest hands can change the largest hearts. And so the mansion no longer waited in suspicion. It breathed in generosity, a place where a billionaire learned that pretending to sleep could never reveal truth, but waking up to kindness could change everything.